What questions do citizens have for the German EU Council Presidency? The EU series answers 3 questions from the population, this time on the subject of industry and competitiveness in the European Union. Number 1, what does the industrial strategy in Germany and Europe stand for? With an industrial strategy, policy is made for the industry, and usually a plan for the next few years and decades is submitted so that the industry can continue to develop well. The industry as a whole is considered. What course do we have to set or change so that employees, employers and companies in industry continue to develop well, or, as one says among economists, remain competitive? The following things are particularly important in a social market economy. Are the framework conditions for industry still right? What about the tax burden, jobs, other taxes? Is it promoted accordingly? Which technologies are decisive for the future of everyone in industry? Are other areas set up in such a way that they are also useful for industry? This includes questions of education and training, as well as questions of trade policy and competition law. Because if these factors are all set correctly, industrial companies can develop their performance and competitive strength and make their contribution to growth and prosperity. And number 2, what does it mean to sustainably strengthen industrial competitiveness? The term competitiveness initially means a kind of viability. If a company is competitive, it has prevailed in the competition. That means it sells its product on the market at competitive prices and thus makes a profit. The state or politics also have the task of strengthening the competitiveness of the economy as a whole, and here of industry in particular. This can be done by optimizing the framework conditions, and many of them I mentioned before. Sustainable strengthening means that, in contrast to very short-term support, the political measure produces a long-term positive effect. In particular, political ideas in the direction of climate protection, for example by saving CO2 or digitization, for example in the form of the development of new digital technologies, discussed as sustainable as they will determine economic development over the next few years and decades. A sustainable strengthening can therefore be political support for restructuring measures in industrial production, which then works more efficiently and, for example, consumes fewer resources. And number 3, how can industry in Germany and Europe recover from the corona pandemic? The corona pandemic has put industry in Germany and Europe in a very difficult economic situation. The effects of, for example, less consumption by the population and falling demand from foreign companies for German or European industrial products initially presented many companies with the problem of a lack of income. Even if the recovery process begins slowly but surely, the effects will still be seen and felt for a long time. Much has already been done to help industry in Germany and Europe immediately and for the coming months. In Germany, the vast majority of all industrial companies initially bridged the crisis with short-time working. In addition to this and other emergency measures, long-term investments now make sense and are conducive to economic growth. The state can play a decisive role by triggering large-scale private investment through co-financing in promising areas. Hydrogen technology, for example, is a very promising way of replacing production processes or fuel that are more harmful to the climate. In the field of steel production or, for example, when moving heavy loads, hydrogen can be a more sustainable alternative solution. If many European industrial companies that are promisingly active in the same technological sector come together now, for example at an IPCEI, that's an important project of common European interest, then the industry can not only recover from the corona pandemic, but at the same time position well for future business. The European Union thrives on the interest and commitment of its citizens. That is why they want to know, what questions do you have for the German EU Council Presidency? What exactly would you like to know from the people in the ministries who prepare and take the political decisions? For this purpose, in their 3 questions, 3 answers format, the German government puts citizens' questions on key topics of the Council Presidency to vote on their social media channels. They then answer 3 most clicked questions on eu2020.de. And if you now want to know more about European or global politics, YouTube has chosen another of my videos right here for you on the end screen, right next to your chance to subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in my next video. Click and enjoy. Viel Spaß!